Hello, my name is Lisa. I'm 27 years old now, but this story happened when I was 25, just a few months after I'd graduated college and completed my nursing program. I'd finally landed my first full-time job at a hospital about 30 minutes from where I lived. I was going through a rough patch at the time. My mom had recently been diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's, and I was trying to juggle my new job with being there for her and my younger brother. I was constantly exhausted, but I knew I didn't have the luxury of breaking down. We needed the money and this was my dream career, so I kept pushing. I had worked night shifts before, fast food gas stations, but this was different. Hospitals at night feel heavy, not just because of the lighting or the silence but because of what people bring in with them. Pain, fear, death lingers. Some people said the hospital was haunted. I never believed in that sort of thing, but I'd be lying if I said the place didn't give me chills sometimes. Anyway, it was a Tuesday night. My shift started at 6 p.m. and wouldn't end until 4 in the morning. We were severely understaffed that night, so I had to cover almost half the floor on my own. I spent the first few hours doing patient rounds, checking vitals, adjusting meds, helping some patients to the bathroom. The usual. Around 11:45 p.m. I finally had a chance to breathe. I sat down at the reception desk to catch up on some charting when I noticed a man standing just a few feet away. I hadn't heard him approach. He looked to be in his late 40s, maybe early 50s. Messy dark hair, an old baseball cap, faded blue jacket, jeans that looked like they hadn't been washed in a while. He had deep wrinkles on his face, but his eyes were what really got me. White. Tired. Like he hadn't slept in days. I cleared my throat and asked, "Sir? Visiting hours ended at midnight, but we reopen at 7. Can I help you with something?" He stared at me for a second, then said in a soft, gravelly voice, "I'm just looking for my wife, Sarah Koffler. She had surgery earlier today." His tone was calm, but something about the way he said it made my stomach twist a little. I glanced at the computer to check the patient list. I didn't see anyone by that name. I don't think we have anyone here by that name, but let me double check. Before I could finish, he just nodded, turned around and walked away down the hallway. I was going to follow him, but I hesitated. I told myself he must have gotten the wrong hospital. Maybe he was just confused. He didn't seem dangerous, just tired and Still, I made a mental note to let security know if I saw him again. About 15 minutes later, I was making my way down the hall to check on an elderly patient who had pressed her call button. When I got to her room, she looked shaken. "There was a man," she whispered. "He came in here just now. Said he was looking for someone. I told him to get out." My blood ran cold. I asked her what he looked like. She described the man from earlier. Blue jacket, hat, rough voice. I apologized to her and told her I'd inform security immediately. As I left the room, I glanced down the hallway. And there he was again, slipping into another patient's room. I rushed back to the desk and picked up the phone to call security. By the time they got up to the floor, the guy had already entered 3 more rooms. One of the patients, a middle-aged man recovering from heart surgery, said the guy had stood at the foot of his bed, just watching him for a minute before walking away. Security finally spotted him trying to enter another room and approached him. That's when everything escalated. He tried to run. They tackled him just outside of the stairwell. In the struggle, something clattered to the floor, a long kitchen knife. He had been carrying it the whole time. They detained him and called the police. I was shaking. I had no idea how close we all had come to something so much worse. While the commotion was still settling down, I got a message on my pager to check on a patient in room 312. I walked over, still trying to catch my breath. It was a woman in her 30s, just coming out of anesthesia from a routine appendectomy. Her name? Sarah Koffler. I froze when I read her name on the chart. I stepped in and gently asked if she was okay. She nodded, still groggy but alert enough to notice how pale I looked. "You all right?" she asked me. I nodded, then hesitated. "Did you tell anyone you were here? Like, a family member? A boyfriend or husband?" She furrowed her brow. "No, why?" I told her as carefully as I could that a man claiming to be her husband had come in looking for her. She blinked a few times, then her expression shifted, fear creeping in. That's not my husband. That's probably my ex." "Your ex?" She nodded. "We broke up 3 years ago. He stalked me for a while. He was unstable, controlling, got physical once. I moved and changed my number. I didn't think he'd ever find me again. I had no words. We just looked at each other, both realizing how close he had come. If I hadn't checked the patient list, if he hadn't been caught in time, if she had been unconscious when he found her room. To this day I still think about that night. I still work at that hospital, still pull night shifts sometimes. But now I always double-check visitor names. I don't brush off weird feelings anymore. And I definitely don't assume someone's harmless just because they look tired. It's just a memory now, just one of those nights burned into my mind forever. Hello, my name is Rachel. I'm 21 now, but this story happened when I was 17. It was late spring and my parents and I were visiting my Uncle Jim at the hospital. He was having a serious surgery on his leg and we'd driven in from a few towns over to be there for support. I wasn't super close with my uncle, but I knew how much he meant to my mom and I could tell she was stressed out. That whole week had been hard. I was in the middle of finals, dealing with a rocky relationship, and I just remember feeling emotionally drained. I wasn't really in the mood to sit in a hospital room all night, so when we got there, I told my parents I'd wait downstairs while they spent time with him. They were on the 3rd floor and I found a bench near the vending machines in the main lobby downstairs. It was quiet, just the faint buzz of fluorescent lights and the occasional echo of hospital shoes on tile. I pulled out my phone and started video chatting with my girlfriend. We didn't talk long. She was tired and about to go to bed, so we said our goodnights and I stayed on the bench scrolling for a bit. That's when I noticed a man walk by. I hadn't heard him approach, but I felt that weird sense, like someone was looking at me. When I looked up, he was already past me, but then he stopped, turned around and walked back toward where I was sitting. He had this big bushy beard and was completely bald on top. His eyes were this really light blue, almost unnaturally light. He wore what looked like a red and black flannel shirt, torn jeans and thick work boots, like he had just stepped out of a forest. I remember thinking he looked like a lumberjack who'd wandered into the wrong building. He smiled at me as he walked over and said, "Didn't mean to bump into you there." Which was weird because he never actually did. I gave him a polite smile and said, "No worries." Then he sat down on the bench next to me. First it was small talk. He asked if I was visiting someone. I told him about my uncle. He asked if I was from the area and I just said no, trying to keep it vague. He asked how old I was, and that's when things got uncomfortable. I said, 17. He raised an eyebrow and smirked. "You look older," he said. "Cute girl like you, got a boyfriend?" I told him I had a girlfriend. That's when his entire vibe changed. The smile dropped. His eyes got real cold and his jaw clenched. Then he muttered something under his breath, something like "waste of beauty," before standing up and walking away without another word. I sat there frozen for a second. That whole conversation had gone from weird to wrong so fast, I didn't even know how to process it. I eventually got up and figured I'd go to the restroom to splash water on my face and shake it off. The restrooms were down a short hallway just past the elevators. I pushed open the heavy door and stepped into the tiled room. It was one of those single-row bathrooms with stalls on one side and sinks on the other. I went into the middle stall and locked it. I hadn't been in there more than 30 seconds when I heard the restroom door creak open behind me. Then the stall next to mine opened. Then closed. I froze. There was silence for a few seconds. Then I heard shifting, movement. Then I saw a face slowly peer over the stall wall. It was him. That same man. Bald. Beard. Cold blue eyes. He stared down at me and whispered, "So, did you break up with your girlfriend yet?" My blood ran cold. I screamed and shoved the stall door open, almost tripping as I ran for the exit. He called after me, "Wait. It's not what it looks like." I didn't care. I sprinted out of the restroom, down the hall, and turned a sharp corner toward the elevators. A security guard was standing near the front entrance and I ran straight to him. I was panicking, barely able to form words, but I pointed back toward the bathroom and said, "There's a man in there. He followed me in, he tried to." That was all I could get out before I burst into tears. The guard immediately radioed someone, then told me to wait with a nurse who had come to check what was happening. They searched the bathroom and the surrounding halls. But he was gone. Just vanished. No one matching his description had signed in. No patients or visitors by that name were listed. And no security footage showed where he came from. One of the cameras in the lobby had a glitch during the 10-minute window he was with me. Of course. I finally told my parents everything once they came back downstairs. They were horrified. My dad wanted to storm the entire floor and find the guy himself, but the hospital security had already started a report and there was nothing more we could really do. We left soon after. I didn't sleep at all that night. For weeks, I'd glance over my shoulder everywhere I went. Every time I passed a public restroom, I'd remember that pale blue stare peeking over the wall. I never saw him again, but sometimes when I'm walking alone, I swear I feel that same presence nearby. I don't know who he was. I don't know what he really wanted. And I don't know how he disappeared so fast. But I do know this. Some people don't need to hurt you to ruin your sense of safety. Some people just need to get close enough to remind you how quickly things can go wrong. This is now just a memory that happened. But I'll never forget that face. So the guy from the hospital, let's never meet again.
Hey, my name's Dave. I'm 21 years old. This story didn't happen years ago like most scary stories people tell. It happened just a few weeks ago. I got hit by a car. It wasn't anything crazy or my fault. I was just walking on the sidewalk near my college campus when the SUV jumped the curb. The guy driving had a seizure behind the wheel, apparently. He survived, thankfully, and I was lucky, really lucky. I only broke a bone in my foot. It could have been my spine or my skull. Anyways, I ended up staying late in the hospital for a couple nights, mostly just to keep me monitored and for the pain management. The room was small but not terrible. I had a small TV, my own bathroom, and enough meds to numb an elephant. That week had already been stressful. My classes were piling up. I had a part time job I couldn't go to, and I was overwhelmed with emails and calls. Being in the hospital should have been a break, but instead it became the scariest night of my life. It was around 11:45 at night. I had just finished watching some dumb late night comedy show and was actually feeling a little bit better. That's when the night nurse came in. She was nice, probably in her 30s, and she gently reminded me it was time to get some rest. I was on a heavy dose of painkillers, and she said that the lights and the noise wouldn't help with healing, so I turned off the TV and said goodnight. As soon as the screen went black, and the door clicked closed behind her. The silence really settled in. Hospitals are weird at night, quiet, but not peaceful. You could still hear random beeps, faint footsteps, distant intercoms echoing in the hallways. I closed my eyes and tried to drift off. That's when it started. I felt cold, not just chilly cold, like someone had cracked open a freezer and pointed it directly at me. My arms and neck got goosebumps instantly. The the blankets didn't help. It was like the air itself has changed. I opened my eyes. The room looked exactly the same, dark, dim. Light from the hallway barely slipped in through the light. Everything seemed normal except the feeling. The air felt heavy. My chest felt tighter. I figured maybe it was anxiety or the pain meds. So I turned onto my side and closed my eyes again. But then I heard something, a creak. It sounded like my hospital room door slowly opening. My eyes snapped open. I tried to turn my head to look, but I couldn't. My body wouldn't move. My arms, my legs, nothing. I was completely frozen. Sleep paralysis. I never experienced it, but I heard about it. I told myself, okay, this isn't real. Just breathe. Wait it out. But that's when I saw it. Through the edge of my vision, I could see the door. It was open, and something was standing in the doorway. A tall figure, unmoving like a shadow, but somehow darker than the rest of the room. I kept trying to move, scream, twitch, anything, but my body was locked. And the figure started moving, not walking. It was gliding. It was slowly moving into my room. Silent, smooth, no footsteps, no breathing, just sliding towards me like it was floating a few inches off the ground. It didn't feel like a dream. I know what dreams feel like. This was different. The fear was sharp, like my body knew something was really wrong. As I got closer, I could make out more. Its face, or what should have been a face, was just a mess of shifting shadows. Like something had taken the idea of a face and smeared it with no smoke, no eyes, no mouth. Until it stopped at the side of my bed. It turned its head, then stared directly at me. Then it screamed. A deep, sharp, inhuman shriek. that pierced through the room and made my entire body vibrate. It was like the sound came from inside the skull instead of the air, and just like that, my body jolted awake. I sat up, gasping. My heart was racing. The room was silent, the door was closed, the cold air was gone, everything was still. I slammed the call button and asked the nurse to check on me. She came in and gave me some water. I told her I had a bad reaction to the meds. I didn't tell her the full story. I didn't think she believed me. I didn't sleep that night. 2 days later, I was discharged. Since then, I haven't had a sleep paralysis again, and nothing weird has happened. Life's gone back to normal, but every time I close my eyes to sleep, sometimes I see it.